from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Good evening. Welcome to the national news telecast here on ChannelEye Rupavahini. With today's news, I'm Win Hettiarachi together with Kasuni Balachandran. Today is the 9th of August and here are today's headlines. President says Sri Lankan Army receives the gratitude of the nation for protecting democracy by safeguarding the legislature from anarchists. Amended appropriation bill for the next quarter of the year presented in Parliament. Electricity tariffs increase, price of food packet and a cup of tea drops. Cabinet approval to revise the price of domestic gas cylinders on 5th of every month. Government accepts the right to conduct peaceful protests, Cabinet spokesman says. Cabinet approval to revise water bills. Bangladesh faces severe difficulties with a 52% fuel price hike.
We move on to those and other stories in detail. And on your top local story tonight, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says the security forces led by Sri Lanka Army safeguarded the legislature in a responsible manner, and similarly 225 parliamentarians should also fulfill their duties and responsibilities.
The president said that the Sri Lankan army receives the gratitude of the nation for protecting democracy by restricting the anarchists who took control of the executive and disrupted the legislature.
The president made these remarks while addressing the officers and personnel of Sri Lanka Army during a special official visit to Sri Lanka Army headquarters in Akuregoda, Palwatha today. The president was welcomed by Sri Lanka Army Commander Lieutenant General Vikum Liyanage. A guard of honour was conducted on behalf of President Wickremesinghe by the Gajaba Regiment of the Sri Lanka Army. Certificates of appreciation were presented to the members of the Sri Lanka Army who were instrumental in subduing the efforts taken by the anarchists to enter into the parliamentary premises. Addressing the gathering, President Wickremesinghe appreciated the steps taken by the security forces for refraining from opening fire at any of the individuals during the operations. President Ranil Wickremesinghe said that the main responsibility of the security forces is to safeguard the nation and its constitution. He said that if all three institutions that uphold democracy, namely legislature, executive and judiciary, fail to function appropriately, the country becomes an anarchist state with the collapse of the constitution. He added that the security forces acted with great responsibility at such occasion. President Wickremesinghe said that on July 9th, the anarchists apprehended the president's house and the presidential secretariat. Accordingly, he said that the then president had no institution to exercise his powers. He also said that the official residence of the Prime Minister, Temple Trees, was also taken into custody of the anarchists, which ultimately prevented the office to function in its capacity. He added that his house was also set on fire, with the implication that he will resign from the premiership. He also said that the office of the Prime Minister was taken into custody on July 13th, and even then, the executive had no institution to exercise its power. President Wickremesinghe pointed out that efforts were taken to surround the parliament. He said that if the parliament was captured, then there will not be a government to implement the legislature. He added that apprehending the judiciary is a convenient task, but the country would have faced a grave situation if the parliament was captured. Accordingly, President Wickremesinghe said that he requested the heads of the security forces, especially General Shavindra Silva and Commander Lieutenant General Liyanage, to safeguard the parliament. Accordingly, he said that this task was handed over to the Sri Lanka Army and they were able to disperse the crowds without opening fire at them. He appreciated Sri Lanka Army for acting with such great responsibility and ensuring the protection of these institutions. He pointed out that if the parliament was not protected, then the situation in the country would be different. President Wickremesinghe said that unlike the operations in the north, this is a step taken to ensure democracy. He said that as they were able to defeat terrorism in the past, they were successful in protecting democracy. He added that Sri Lanka Army has fulfilled its constitutional responsibility by safeguarding the parliamentary complex and creating a safe passage for the assembly of the parliament. He said that next step is to continue the parliamentary process and the parliamentarians should be able to secure the public trust. He also said that all parliamentarians should get together and resolve the prevailing issue. He also pointed out that efforts are being taken to bring in new constitutional amendments and form an all-party government. President Wickremesinghe said that all 225 parliamentarians have to fulfill their responsibilities with utmost commitment, as reminded by him, the Prime Minister and the Speaker. He said that with these efforts, the government should be able to resolve the economic challenges in the country. He said that the difficult period has already been passed and the responsibility to ensure stability in the country by the next year is with the parliament. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, Speaker Mahindayapa Abewardena, Minister Tiran Alas and Defence Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne were present on the occasion.
The state leaders of Seychelles, Denmark, Zimbabwe, Serbia and Ethiopia have extended their congratulatory and best wishes to the President of Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe. President of Seychelles, Vavel Ramakalawan, said that Sri Lanka, under the leadership of the present president, should be able to overcome all its challenges and bring economic stability and development. Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, indicated that she expects to maintain cooperation between the countries continuously. President of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Dambazo Mnangagwa, said that he expects to work closely on bilateral and multilateral relations with Sri Lanka, and the appointment of the President Wickremesinghe is evidence of the trust placed on his leadership skills. President of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, said that his belief in traditional and bilateral relations will continue to improve between the nations. President of Ethiopia, Sahle-Work Zewde, said that her belief is bilateral and friendly relations will continue to strengthen between the countries accordingly.
The total turnover at the Colombo Stock Exchange recorded today at 5.34 billion rupees, while the share volume is over 151 million rupees. The all-share price index of the Colombo Stock Exchange has reached the 8,500 points mark at the end of trading today. This is an increase of 0.91% from the previous day. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 index has gained 9.73 points with an increase of 0.35% to close at 2,803.88 points.
9.73 points to close the day at 2,803.88. Total turnover of 534.1 billion, which consists of 19.5 billion foreign purchases were taken place. Compared with the last week, we have seen an increasing in market activities as a whole. Turnover increased to 1,442.5 billion from 509.4 billion from last week. Number of trades were increased to 139,383 this week, compared with the last week 71,045 trades. Day end with a market capitalization of 370,277.3 billion.
The Public Utilities Commission has granted approval for the Ceylon Electricity Board to increase electricity tariffs by 75% effective from tomorrow. Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, during a media briefing said that the payment of employee bonuses will not be made until the financial situation at the Ceylon Petro Electricity Board is stabilized. An additional rate of 198 rupees will be added to the usage bill between 0 to 30 units. The bill of consumers with 31 to 60 units will be increased with an additional rate of 599 rupees. The electricity bills of consumers of 61 to 90 units will be increased with an additional rate of 1,461 rupees, and the consumers of 91 to 120 units to receive an additional rate of 2,976 rupees. The electricity bills of consumers of 121 to 180 units will be increased to 5,005 rupees. Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, said that the Ceylon Electricity Board submitted 4 proposals for electricity tariff revisions after 9 years. He said that the proposal was presented on June 20th to increase the electricity bill by 229%. However, he said that Public Utilities Commission, after conducting a study, decided to increase the tariffs by 75%. He pointed out that compared to the price hike of 25% in 2013, the present price hike can be considered as a low rate with increasing inflation rates. He said that several issues have impacted on the several recent price hike. He pointed out that the country will have to import coal from October 25th and throughout December, which require $100 million. He also said that the litre of diesel was 121 rupees 6 months ago and that the present rate is 430 rupees. He added that the litre of furnace oil was 90 rupees 6 months ago and the present rate is 419 rupees. Accordingly, he said that 350% increase has been observed in diesel, petrol and coal procurements within the past 6 months. Accordingly, he said that they can only generate power up to 30 to 35% from the thermal sources such as fuel. Minister Kanchan Vijayasekara said that online progress review meeting was held this morning on Fuel Pass QR system at the Ministry of Power and Energy.
In a tweet, the minister said that a discussion was held on the implementation of the multi-vehicle registration with single phone number. In a tweet, Minister Kanchana Vijayasekara said the timeline was discussed for implementing the multi-vehicle registration with single phone number, special category for additional requirements, non-vehicle fuel requirements, dashboard and tourism sector fuel pass. All problematic concerns pertaining to the National Fuel Pass system at filling stations across the country have been resolved at present. Reports have indicated that long queues near filling stations continue to decline with the new system, along with rackets, violent activities and disruptive behavior in the proximities of filling stations. Steps have been taken to issue fuel for private buses from SLTB depots. Accordingly, steps were taken to issue fuel for private buses which had arrived at Talangama depot today. All Island Canteen Owners Association said that steps have been taken to reduce the price of food packet by 10% and a cup of tea up to 30 rupees.
The amended appropriation bill for the next quarter of the year was presented to the Parliament by Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. Accordingly, the overall expenditure budget has been increased by 479,430 million rupees to a total of 3,265 billion rupees. The largest allocation under the amended appropriation bill has been allocated for the Ministry of Public Administration and Home Affairs and Local Government. Accordingly, a provision of 734,680 million rupees has been allocated. Over 460,000 million rupees have been allocated for the Ministry of Finance. 240,000 million rupees have been allocated for the Ministry of Health, while over 9,000 million rupees have been allocated for the Ministry of Trade. A provision of 300,000 million rupees have been allocated for the Ministry of Transport, while 130,000 million rupees have been allocated for the Ministry of Agriculture. Ministry of Power and Energy has been allocated with a budget of 27,000 million rupees, while the Defence Ministry has been allocated a provision of 654 billion rupees.
The debate on the policy statement presented by the President commencing in the third session in the 9th Parliament began today. Parliamentarians representing the ruling party and the opposition made remarks over the policy statement of President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the present situation in the country. Parliamentarian Lakshman Kiriyalla said that he was astonished when he listened to the throne speech of the President. He said that this government is taking measures to reverse the steps taken during the former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's tenure and the Parliament. He said that the President should provide a time frame for the interim government. He said that local government electoral period concludes by this September. He inquired the Prime Minister whether there is an intention to postpone the elections. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said that several amendments will be presented in the next couple of weeks. MP Lakshman Kiriyalla inquired whether the election will be held in next March. MP Dinesh Gunawardena said that no such decision is yet to be taken following a meeting with the Election Commission. MP Ranjan Madhumbandara said that a unanimous decision was reached then to conduct the election at the earliest. Ministry of Foreign Affairs has communicated to the Embassy of China in Colombo to defer the visit of the Chinese vessel Yuanwang 5 to the Hambantota port.
The Foreign Affairs Ministry has indicated the relevant request was made in light of the need for further consultation. The Chinese vessel, expected to make port call at the Hambantota port from August 11th to 17th from the replenishment purposes, the relevant diplomatic clearance for the Chinese vessel was conveyed by Sri Lankan Ministry to the Embassy of China in Colombo on July 12th. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has reaffirmed the enduring friendship and the excellent relations between Sri Lanka and China, which remain on solid foundation, as reiterated most recently by the two foreign ministers, Ali Sabri and Wang Yi, at a bilateral meeting in Cambodia on August 4th. At this first meeting between the two foreign ministers, the Minister Sabri referred to Sri Lanka's firm commitment to One China policy, which has been a consistent principle of the country's foreign policy. Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to implement a cost representative formula to revise domestic gas prices on the 5th of every month. The proposal was presented by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. A cost representative price formula will be implemented to ensure continuous supply of gas based on price formula to revise the domestic gas prices. Cabinet approved the amendment of Petroleum Products Act to enable other parties to be granted license for import of petroleum products in order to ensure continuous supply of petroleum products due to the recent severe foreign exchange deficit. The proposal was presented by Minister Kanchana Wijesekara. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal for the implementation of Food Security and Livelihood Restoration Emergency Assistance Project. The relevant proposal was presented by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The project, Food Security and Livelihood Restoration Emergency Assistance Project, is planned to be implemented with the aim of protecting the food security and livelihood of poor and in disaster. In addition to Japan Fund for Prosperous and Resilient Asia and Pacific Region has agreed to provide $3 million grant through the Asian Development Bank to finance the project activities. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to resolution to revise the water charges and sewage charges to obtained at present. It has been recognized that revision charges to ensure the financial stability of the national water supply and the drainage board and the supply of water services to the public continuously and without any disturbance is required. Cabinet of Ministers also granted approval for the program to provide Japanese language competency at school level in terms of memorandum of understanding signed between the Government of Sri Lanka and the Government of Japan. The Sri Lankans are eligible to apply for employment as technical in-services trainees, employment in 14 sectors under the program with special skills. Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the resolution to revise water charges and sewage charges obtained at present. It has been recognized that revision of charges to ensure the financial stability of the national water supply and drainage board and the supply of water services to the public continuously and without any disturbance is required.
Cabinet spokesman Minister Bandula Gunawardena says the government accepts the right to conduct peaceful protests. The government also ensures the security of the protesters. The minister made these remarks during the media briefing held to announce the cabinet decisions. Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that the President in his throne speech said that everyone has the right to engage in peaceful protests without disrupting the public or violating fundamental rights of the people. Accordingly, he said that the President has allocated 2 protest sites in Kandy and Colombo. He said that the President assured a constitutional institution consisting of a retired judge to receive complaints and concerns if such protesters and those who wish to present a fair and justifiable criticism are faced with threats and injustice. However, he said that the law to prevent violence in the country will be enforced if an individual engages in activities which would violate fundamental rights of others. He said that he is a minister who had not resorted to any violence in the past. Therefore, he said that if a group of people engages in protests in front of his house and then set fire to the house, then such activities cannot be considered as peaceful protests. He also said that the recent events have left a black mark for Sri Lanka. He pointed out that it is violence to kill a public representative and its security guard and then set fire to the houses of 70 public representatives within 12 hours. Therefore, he said that objections are raised on such activities and no interferences will be made on the peaceful protests, and a mechanism will be prepared for the protesters to share their concerns while assuring their safety, as pointed out by the President in the Parliament. Also, he said that the President has already briefed foreign diplomats over the present situation.
Cabinet of Ministers has decided to convert 7 urban councils in municipal councils. In addition, the Cabinet spokesman Minister Bandunu Guruvardhana said that the Cabinet approval has been granted to convert 3 Pradeshia Sabhas to urban councils. Cabinet spokesman Minister Bandunu Guruvardhana said that the Cabinet approval was granted yesterday to convert the urban councils, namely Kalutara, Vavuniya, Puttalam and Trincomalee, Manna, Ampara and Kegolla, into municipal council. Accordingly, he said that 10 cities and 25 administrative districts in the country will receive the status of municipal councils or urban councils. He also said that Homagama Pradesh Sabha is the largest Pradesh Sabha in the country. Accordingly, he said that the President has informed to provide recommendations to prepare urban councils. Municipal councils and Pradesh Sabhas, considering the changes occurred in the Western province.
Several protests were organized in various parts of the country today. These protests were organized by the opposition parties and trade unions. A silent protest was organized in front of the parliament by the Samagi Janabala Vegaya parliamentarians. Meanwhile, a protest march organised by Janata Vimukta Peramuna commenced from Colombo Fort railway station and arrived at the Independence Square through Vihara Mahadevi Park. A protest rally organised by trade unions and civil organisations was held in front of Colombo Fort railway station today. Another protest rally organised by trade unions and civil organisations was held in Kegalle town. Today is the 123rd day of the Galle Face protest. The second Randoli Perahara of the historic Kandy Asala festival paraded the streets last night. The Perahara left the Sri Dalanda Maligava at the auspicious time of 7:24 p.m. The casket of the sacred relic was paraded by Tusker Singharaja. Both Mian Raja and Burma Raja Tuskers accompanied the Tusker Singharaja during the parade. The golden palanquins consist of jewellery belonging to 4 Mahadevalayas. Natha, Vishnu, Katragama and Pattini also took part in the parade. The Perahara paraded along Dalanda Street, D.S. Senanayaka Street, Colombo Street, Yatinuara Street, King Street, E.L. Senanayaka Street and Cross Street before returning to Sri Dalanda Maligava along D.S. Senanayaka Street and King Street. The 11th Perahara of the Asla festival of historic Ruhunu Maha Katragama Devalaya paraded the streets last night. The Perahara left the main entrance of the Devalaya at the auspicious time of 7:34 p.m. The Perahara arrived at the Valyama Devalaya along Peter Street and conducted relevant religious rites before returning to the Mahadevalaya. The fire walking ritual was held at 4 a.m. today with the participation of more than 400 devotees. The final procession is scheduled to take place on Nikini full moon Poya day.
හොඳම දේ විශ්වාසයෙන් ට්‍රීට් කරන්න. Prima Treats. Life is a treat.
Welcome back, and in your foreign news tonight, protests erupt in Bangladesh following a 52% hike in fuel prices.
The Bangladesh government said that the fuel price increase was inevitable with all global market conditions. A steep increase in fuel prices in Bangladesh saw protesters erupting across the country. The hike of the prices of petrol and diesel have been increased by more than 50%. Angry demonstrators have surrounded fuel stations throughout Bangladesh, demanding unexpected fare increases to be reverted. The increase was announced by the government last week after diesel went up by 34 taka per litre, octane by 46 taka per litre and petrol by 44 taka per litre. Records have indicated that 51.7% increases in fuel prices is the highest since the country obtained independence. The $416 billion economy has been one of the fastest growing in the world for years. But there have been several protest marches organized by various civil organizations, including student unions, against the government's decision to increase fuel prices.
At least 8 people have died as flooding caused by torrential rain hit parts of South Korea's capital, Seoul. Heavy downpours last night submerged roads, flooded metro stations and caused blackouts across the city and neighboring provinces. Some areas received the highest rate of rainfall in 8 years, Korea's meteorological agency said. Korean authorities said that rain was likely to continue over several days. Parts of Seoul, the western port city of Incheon and Gyeonggi province surrounding Seoul charted rainfall of over 10 centimeters per hour last night. Meanwhile, Seoul's Dongjak district recorded more than 141.5 millimeters of rain per hour, according to Korea's meteorological administration. At least 14 were injured and 6 other reported missing, and at least 163 people in Seoul have been made homeless and have taken shelter in schools and public facilities.
Prima Kotomi Pantan.
Now on to sports news. Yesterday was the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in which Sri Lankan athletes shone in. These games were held in Birmingham.
The closing ceremony was held at the Birmingham Alexandra Stadium. The ceremony was attended by many prestigious guests, and Prince Edward represented the royal family at the colourful event. Over 5,000 athletes representing 72 countries competed in the Commonwealth Games to secure 877 medals. Australia took the lead in the medal tally at the conclusion of the tournament with 67 gold, 57 silver and 54 bronze medals. The host, England, secured 57 gold, 66 silver and 53 bronze medals, placing second in the leaderboard. Sri Lanka was placed in the 31st position with 4 medals, including 1 silver and 3 bronze. The next Commonwealth Games will be held in the state of Victoria in Australia in 2026. Para-athlete Palita Bandara, who won the silver medal in the discus throw event at the Commonwealth Games, arrived in the country today. He was welcomed by the officials of the Ministry of Sports and his family members.
Prima Kotomi, Pantan.
That's it for tonight's English News Telecast. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Good night.